This is Yogini Rasa, Open Yoga teacher, and this is the material for the International Open Yoga University. All the materials are available on the site Yoga Open Yoga. Everybody welcome, and this is going to be important material on Hatha Yoga, and we continue with our studies there. So if we take a look on the kind of the beginning, where the people get the first experience, is usually in the group class. People come to the class and they get wonderful results because it's said that the more people there are on the area of the premise, the better are the results. That's like when you bring the small coils together and you get the fire, rather than burning the wet sticks. Then probably you need a big fire in order to get them dried out, and then they start burning. However, not everybody has these kind of possibilities. Thereby, in this class, we have a great material with the first yoga poses from the Hatha Yoga treatise. And what we start with is the cobra pose. Quite difficult, but you always start very slowly, very gradually. There's also the seated forward bend and standing forward bend, and some more poses for you to explore. However, what you will notice, the description, very first one description, is very short. It gives a few words on how to do the pose, as well as the impact of the pose. And the impact is very interesting. It is more on the tiny level or fine level, rather than on this harsh level. Thereby, what we do usually in the yoga, in order to get these fine results, we focus. We focus on our inner world rather than what's happening around us. And we start training our intuition. As I say, there's a small voice or a bigger voice inside us, don't mix them with the other voices, that is telling us how do we feel. Are we doing on our level, or we are doing it over the limits, and that might hurt us. For example, we work for many hours and say our body that, okay, I'm done with this work, and then we take a rest. When this work is done, you notice that you have 2 more tasks to do, and thereby you forget about the promise to your body and get to fulfilling those 2 works. When those 2 are done, 4 are there, new ones, and your body gets more and more tired, and at one point it gets so much tired that something fails. Either you get terrible backache or headache, or you are just other problems start appearing. Thereby, this inner voice, our intuition that is telling us how well do we feel, is very important. So we focus on these inner feelings when we are doing the Hatha Yoga poses. And we don't that much pay attention to the time, because there were no watches in the ancient times. But yes, more or less to your feelings again. Enough, not enough, more, less. As you go, you will feel. What is important is also the rest. As I said, if you have worked well, you must have a good rest. Also, when you have done a great work on each of yoga poses, you take a nice rest before the next turn or the next pose, and also at the very end. And yes, in the description of the pose, there will be also the main essence, the most important information. Of course, each teacher, each yoga instructor, each practitioner will be happy to provide with you with enormous amount of details how they we're doing with the cobra pose or Paschimottanasana or Halasana or whatever asana it was, but it's their experience. It might be relevant to your situation, but at the same time, it might be completely irrelevant, and you might lose some time or search for some notes or effects where they are not going to appear, because that's not your case. Thereby, what we do we work with ourselves. Of course, it's nice to be among the people who are in the area you are. That's what professionals do. They meet for the fairs, they meet for different meetings and other professional activities, and they might tell you little tiny details that will be helpful on your way, but only when you have reached certain level. Not on the very beginning when you really need just the basic information, the most important things to work on and to do it. Later on, of course, you will be more interested in other experts, you will explore the topic, you will see the videos and so on and so forth. But at first, what you do, you start the practice, you get the essence, and you go on. So what people are more worried about, do I do the pose properly, how to do it? What you say, there are different schools, different teachers, different perspectives. One is going for the light method and the other one is going for the harsh method. However, the yoga is the union and we need to put these two things together. So what we do is we combine them. How? I will let you know later on. So when you have the description, it's nice. When it was before, in the ancient times, when there was not that much books on the yoga and books at all or paper, all the instructions were given from the teacher to the student, from this specific teacher who is experienced to this particular student who has a certain level of expertise that the teacher is aware of, and then they can apply the comments what they need. Whenever there is a beginner, they are beginning with the very essence to focus on in the prime stages and then on to go on. As I mentioned, there are two methods. One is the more lighter method, one is more harsh method or harder method, and they are called method of energy and method of consciousness. We have reviewed the methods separately, so you might take a look before. And now this time we are going to apply these methods specifically related to the Hatha yoga, even though they are general methods that apply on the entire yoga in general. So if you remember, or if it's something new to you, method of energy is the light method or the mother's method, when you very lightly take the pose and spend some time in it, as much as comfortable, kind of getting yourself in this pose. So you relax as much as possible in the pose while doing the pose and focusing on the feelings. And the second method is the more energetic method, that requiring more powers, more strength, and it's father's method, when you are kind of putting there some effort and spending a little bit less, let's say you spend less time in this pose, but you are doing it more, bending more, or in other ways. We'll come to that later on. There are pluses and minuses to it. Because yoga is the union, you don't go for the one method or the other method. You combine them. You start with the method of energy in more relaxed. You get to know the area, you get to know yourself, you get to know the pose, and only when you feel strong enough, you go for the other method. It will give you faster results, but if you go there too fast, you might stop doing yoga at all. So there is no better or worse, but the strength is in the combination of these two things, in finding the specific balance. So you apply these two methods, you search for kind of nice inner feelings when doing it, either from the being in the pose and enjoying it, or enjoying from overcoming yourself. And remember that yoga is a system of self-exploration and exploring of the universe that is against any violence, firstly mainly against yourself, and then of course against the other living beings. So no violence whatever in Hatha Yoga regarding yourself. So you start very lightly, pleasantly, you start with enjoyment, you get the first positive feelings, and then little by little you feel the need, it will come from inside, that you need to make some efforts. So firstly you kind of start, you push yourself a little bit just to start, making it easy, lightly. Then you learn how to push yourself a little bit. Then you learn how to stop pushing yourself and again getting more relaxed. And then you again have to find the internal power to go on further. So you do the pose correctly, and only you are able to determine how properly you are doing it. If you have this nice feeling of joy, the joy is always on the background. Joy from the pose you get, or joy from making efforts in this pose and overcoming yourself. More important information and a lot of more details are available in this material on our courses on the site yogaopenyoga.com. In the course on Hatha Yoga, there are the pose descriptions, more detailed look on the methods and more, as well as the test. And so we meet for the next time, and there will be a lot of more interesting to come. So practice, practice and practice, but remember the methods, the harmony, and focus on your inner feelings. And I see you soon. Bye bye.